Chapter 12 of the Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 12 Merry-Go-Round. Spade rode down from Gutman's floor in an elevator. His lips were dry and rough in a face otherwise pale and damp. When he took out his handkerchief to wipe his face, he saw his hand trembling. He grinned at it and said, "Phew," so loudly that the elevator operator turned his head and asked, "Sir?" Spade walked down Geary Street to the Palace Hotel, where he had luncheon. His face had lost its pallor, his lips their dryness, and his hand its tremor. He ate hungrily without haste, and then went to Sid Wise's office. When Spade entered, Wise was biting a fingernail and staring at the window. He took his hand from his mouth, screwed his chair around to face Spade, and said, "Lo, push a chair up." Spade moved a chair to the side of the big paper-laden desk and sat down. "Mrs. Archer come in?" he asked. "Yes." The faintest of lights flickered in Wise's eyes. "Going to marry the lady, Sammy?" Spade sighed irritably through his nose. "Now you start that," he grumbled. A brief, tired smile lifted the corners of the lawyer's mouth. "If you don't," he said, "you're going to have a job on your hands." Spade looked up from the cigarette he was making and spoke sourly. "You mean you are? Well, that's what you're for. What did she tell you?" "About you?" "About anything I ought to know." Wise ran his fingers through his hair, sprinkling dandruff down his shoulders. "She told me she had tried to get a divorce from Miles so she could—" "I know all that," Spade interrupted. "You can skip it. Get to the part I don't know." "How do I know how much she—" "Quit stalling, Sid." Spade held the flame of his lighter to the end of his cigarette. "What did she tell you that she wanted kept from me?" Wise looked up reprovingly at Spade. "Now, Sammy," he began, "that's not—" Spade looked heavenward at the ceiling and groaned. "Dear God, he's my own lawyer that's got rich off me, and I have to get down on my knees and beg him to tell me things." He glowered at Wise. "What the hell do you think I sent her to you for?" Wise made a weary grimace. "Just one more client like you," he complained, "and I'd be in a sanitarium, or San Quentin." "You'd be with most of your clients. Did she tell you where she was the night he was killed?" "Yes." "Where?" "Following her husband." Spade sat up straight and blinked. He exclaimed incredulously, "These women." Then he laughed, relaxed, and asked, "Well, what did she see?" Wise shook his head. "Nothing much. When he came home for dinner that evening, he told her he had a date with a girl at the St. Mark, taunting her, telling her that was her chance to get the evidence for the divorce she wanted. She thought at first that he was just trying to get under her skin. He knew—" "I know the family history," Spade said. "Skip it. Tell me what she did." "I will if you'll give me a chance." "After he had gone out, she began to think that maybe he might have had that date. You know Miles. It would have been like him to—" "You can skip Miles's character, too." "I oughtn't to tell you a damn thing," the lawyer said. "So she got their car from the garage and drove down to the St. Mark, sitting in the car across the street. She saw him come out of the hotel, and she saw that he was shadowing a man and a girl. She says she saw the girl with you last night, and who had come out just ahead of him. She knew then that he was working, had been kidding her. I suppose she was disappointed and mad. She sounded that way when she told me about it. She followed Miles long enough to be sure he was shadowing the pair, and then she went up to your rooms. You weren't home." "What time was that?" Spade asked. "When she got to your place? Between 9:30 and 10 the first time." "The first time?" "Yes. She drove around for half an hour or more after that, and then tried again. That would make it, say, 10:30. You were still out, so she drove back downtown and went to a movie to kill time until after midnight, when she thought she'd be more likely to find you in." Spade frowned. She went to a movie at 10:30? So she said. The one on Powell Street that stays open till 1 in the morning. She didn't want to go home, she said, because she didn't want to be there when Miles came home. That always made him mad, it seems, especially if it was around midnight. She stayed in the movie until it closed. Wise's words came out slower now, and there was a sardonic glint in his tired eyes. She says she had decided not to go back to your place then. She says she didn't know whether you'd like having her drop in that late. So she went to Tate's, the one on Ellis Street, had something to eat, and then went home alone. Wise rocked back in his chair and waited for Spade to speak. Spade's face was expressionless. He asked, "You believe her?" "Don't you?" Wise replied. "How do I know? How do I know it wasn't something you fixed up between you to tell me?" Wise smiled. "You don't cash many checks for strangers, do you, Sammy?" "Not basketfuls." "Well, then what? Miles wasn't home. It was at least 2 o'clock by then." "Miles wasn't home," Wise said. That made her mad again, because he didn't get home first to be made mad by her not being home first. So she took the car out of the garage again and went back to your place. And I wasn't home. I was down looking at Miles's corpse. What a swell lot of merry-go-round riding. What next? She went home, and her husband was still not there, and while she was undressing, your messenger came with the news of his death. Spade didn't speak until he had with great care rolled and lighted another cigarette. Then he said, "I think that's an all right spread. It seems to click with the known facts. It ought to hold." Wise's fingers, running through his hair again, combed more dandruff down on his shoulders. He studied Spade's face with curious eyes and asked, "But you don't believe it?" Spade plucked the cigarette from between his lips. "I don't believe it or disbelieve it, Sid. I don't know a damn thing about it." A wry smile twisted the lawyer's mouth. He shrugged wearily and said, "That's right, I'm selling you out. Why don't you get an honest lawyer, one you can trust?" "Oh, that fellow's dead." Spade stood up. He sneered at Wise. "Getting touchy, huh? I haven't got enough to think about. Now I've got to remember to be polite to you. What did I do? Forget to genuflect when I came in?" Sid Wise smiled sheepishly. "You're a son of a gun, Sammy," he said. Effie Perrine was standing in the center of Spade's outer office when he entered. She looked at him with worried brown eyes and asked, "What happened?" Spade's face grew stiff. "What happened where?" he demanded. "Why didn't she come?" Spade took 2 long steps and caught Effie Perrine by the shoulders. "She didn't get there?" he bawled into her frightened face. She shook her head violently from side to side. "I waited and waited, but she didn't come, and I couldn't get you on the phone, so I came down." Spade jerked his hands from her shoulders, thrust them far down in his trouser pockets, said, "Another merry-go-round ride," in a loud, enraged voice, and strode into his private office. He came out again. "Phone your mother," he commanded her. "See if she's come yet." He walked up and down the office while the girl used the telephone. "No," she said when she had finished. Did you send her out in a taxi?" His grunt probably meant yes. "Are you sure somebody must have seen her and followed her?" Spade stopped pacing the floor. He put his hands on his hips and glared at the girl. He addressed her in a loud, savage voice. "Nobody followed her. Do you think I'm a damned schoolboy? I made sure of it before I put her in the cab. I rode a dozen blocks with her to be more sure, and I checked her another half-dozen blocks after I got out." "Well, but she didn't get there. You've told me that. I know it." "Do you think I think she got there?" Effie Perrine sniffed. "You certainly act like a damned schoolboy," she said. Spade made a harsh noise in his throat and went to the corridor door. "I'm going out and find her if I have to dig up sewers," he said. "Stay here till I'm back, or you hear from me. For God's sake, let's do something right." He went out, walked half the distance to the elevators, and retraced his steps. Effie Perrine was sitting at her desk when he opened the door. He said, "You ought to know better than to pay any attention to me when I talk like that." "If you think I pay any attention to you, you're crazy," she replied. "Only—" She crossed her arms and felt her shoulders, and her mouth twitched uncertainly. "I won't be able to wear an evening gown for 2 weeks, you big brute." He grinned apologetically, said, "I'm no damned good," made an exaggerated bow, and went out again. 2 yellow taxicabs were at the Post and Montgomery Street stand when Spade stopped there. Their chauffeurs were standing together talking. Spade asked, "Where's the red-faced blonde driver that was here at noon?" "Got a load," one of the chauffeurs said. "Will he be back here?" "I guess so." One of his companions ducked his head toward the east. "Here he comes now." Spade walked down to the corner and stood by the curb until the red-faced blonde chauffeur had parked his cab and got out. Then Spade went up to him and said, "I got in your cab with a lady at noontime. We went out Stockton Street and up Sacramento to Jones, where I got out." "Sure," the red-faced man said. "I remember that. I told you to take her on to a 7th Avenue number. You didn't take her there. Where did you take her?" The chauffeur looked doubtfully at Spade and rubbed his cheek with a grimy hand. "I don't know about this." "It's all right," Spade assured him, giving him one of his business cards. "If you want to play safe, though, we can ride up to your office and get your superintendent's okay." "I guess it's all right." "I took her to the Ferry Building." "By herself?" "Yeah, sure." "Didn't take her anywhere else first?" "No. It was like this. After we dropped you, I went on out Sacramento, and when we got to Polk she rapped on the glass and said she wanted to get a newspaper, so I stopped at the corner and whistled for a kid, and she got her paper." "Which paper?" "The Call." "Then I went on out Sacramento, and just after we crossed Van Ness she knocked on the glass again and said take her to the Ferry Building." "Was she excited or anything?" "Not so's I noticed." "And when you got to the Ferry Building?" "She paid me off, that was all." "Anybody waiting there for her?" "I didn't see them if they was." "Which way did she go?" "At the ferry? I don't know. Maybe upstairs or toward the steps." "Take the newspaper with her?" "Yeah, she had it tucked under her arm when she paid me." "With the pink sheet outside or one of the white?" "Hell, Cap, I don't remember that." Spade thanked the chauffeur, said, "Get yourself a smoke," and gave him a silver dollar. Spade bought a copy of The Call and carried it into an office building vestibule to examine it out of the wind. His eyes ran swiftly over the front page headlines, and over those on the second and third pages. Then paused for a moment under "Suspect Arrested as Counterfeiter" on the 4th page, and again on page 5 under "Bay Youth Seeks Death with Bullets." Pages 6 and 7 held nothing to interest him. On 8, 3 boys arrested as SF burglars after shooting held his attention for a moment, and after that nothing until he reached the 35th page, which held news of the weather, shipping, produce, finance, divorces, births, marriages, and deaths. He read the list of dead, passed over pages 36 and 37, financial news, found nothing to stop his eyes on the 38th and last page, sighed, folded the newspaper, put it in his coat pocket, and rolled his cigarette. For 5 minutes he stood there in the office building vestibule, smoking and staring sulkily at nothing. Then he walked up to Stockton Street, hailed a taxicab, and had himself driven to the Coronet. He let himself into the building and into Bridget O'Shaughnessy's apartment with the key she had given him. The blue gown she had worn the previous night was hanging across the foot of her bed. Her blue stockings and slippers were on the bedroom floor. The polychrome box that had held jewelry and had been in the dressing-table drawer now stood empty on the dressing-table's top. Spade frowned at it, ran his tongue across his lips, strolled through the rooms looking around, but not touching anything, then left the coronet and went downtown again. In the doorway of the building where Spade had his offices, he came face to face with the boy he had left at Gutman's. The boy put himself in Spade's path, blocking the entrance, and said, "Come on, he wants to see you." The boy's hands were in his overcoat pockets. His pockets bulged more than his hands need have made them bulge. Spade grinned and said mockingly, "I didn't expect you till 5:25. I hope I haven't kept you waiting long." The boy raised his eyes to Spade's mouth and spoke in the strained voice of one in physical pain. "You louse, keep on riding me, and you're going to be picking iron out of your navel." Spade chuckled. "The cheaper the crook, the gaudier the patter," he said cheerfully. "Well, let's go." They walked up Sutter Street side by side. The boy kept his hands in his overcoat pockets. They walked a little more than a block in silence. Then Spade asked pleasantly, "How long have you been off the lay?" The boy did not show that he had heard the question. "Did you ever—" Spade began and stopped. A soft light began to glow in his yellowish eyes. He did not address the boy again. They went into the Alexandria, rode up to the 12th floor, and walked down the corridor toward Gutman's suite. Nobody else was in the corridor. Spade lagged a little, so that when they were within 15 feet of Gutman's door, he was perhaps a foot and a half behind the boy. He leaned sidewise suddenly and grasped the boy from behind by both arms, just beneath the boy's elbows. He forced the arms forward so that the boy's hands in his overcoat pockets lifted the overcoat up before him. The boy struggled and writhed, but he was impotent in Spade's grip. The boy kicked back, but his feet went between Spade's widespread legs. Spade lifted the boy straight up from the floor and then brought him down hard on his feet again. The impact made little noise on the thick carpet. At the moment of impact, Spade's big hand slid down and got a fresh grip on the boy's wrists. The boy, teeth set hard together, did not for a moment stop straining against the man's hands, but he could not tear himself loose, could not keep Spade's fingers from crawling down over his own hands. The boy's teeth ground together audibly, the sound mingling with the noise of Spade's breathing, as Spade crushed his hands. They were tensely motionless for a long moment. Then the boy's arms became limp. Spade released the boy and stepped back. In each of Spade's hands, when they came out of the boy's overcoat pockets, there was a heavy automatic pistol. The boy turned and faced Spade. The boy's face was a ghastly white blank. He kept his hands in his overcoat pockets. He looked at Spade's chest and said nothing. Spade put the pistols in his own pockets and grinned derisively. "Come on," he said. "This will put you in solid with your boss." They went to Gutman's door, and Spade knocked. End of chapter 12.